to do here. And I wanted to remind us a little bit about where we've been, talk a little bit about where we are, talk a little bit about where we want to go as a project, and then I'd like to sort of open up the space for all of us to talk about how we as a project get ourselves to the second half of this with even more success than we've taken in the first half of this. And so oh, it's hard to talk with this thing on. I haven't tried that before.
Can you take it off? Stand back and take it off.
Yeah.
Yeah, why don't I stand back and take it off? There we go. All right, much better.
Sorry, Dana.
Much better. So, if we just go back 2 years, right, we're literally, just a few of us, coming out of a meeting that happened in March of 2018, talking about an idea of maybe putting together a cooperative. Just 2 years ago is the first time we're ever sitting down with Hannah Scott and going, well, what if we do something like this? Are we interested in doing something like this? If we can get the funding, and we're looking ahead at the funding, etc. A year and a half ago, we just submitted, we found out we got the funding. A year and a half ago. And then we ran into our first problem, which was Ohio State University. And while it's extremely supportive in its rhetoric of interdisciplinary projects, it was not prepared for what we threw at it. And so it took us 5 months to get that up and going, which meant that we were 5 months behind on everything else we wanted to do when Walt and I were standing out here a little over a year ago, getting chased off this brown field by geese. Like none of this was here just a little over a year ago. And if you think back a year and a half ago or a year ago, you were all just getting started. You had all joined the cooperative, put in your membership, and jumped into, I'm going to train. So you were just finishing with 2 beds in a high tunnel and just moving to 4 beds. Ah, the days of just 4 beds to have, right? And really, in some ways, didn't really know everything you'd gotten yourself into, and that's by design. So part of the larger design of this project was to create a system in a way a system hadn't been created before and figure out how to make it work. And so this is everything you've experienced in the last year has been a lot about that execution and you guys being put out there with this goal. Learn to be producers, take this microfarm and become microfarmers. You are now all the pioneer microfarmers, right? So the reason why we got funding for this system is because a whole lot of people think it has a whole lot of promise to deliver on the things that local food and urban agriculture has been promising to deliver on for a decade. And they're willing to put this funding in behind it. They believe we have a winner here, right? That the whole system's a winner. The system doesn't exist at all, though, without the producers, right? And that was the part that all of you did to make this thing happen. You guys came on last year, you trained, you earned your way into getting a microfarm kit, and now you're all pioneer microfarmers, and you're feeling it. I've talked to a number of you. I know from being a farmer myself, I know that this time of year is the most pressing. I know if you've never done this before, there's a million things you didn't think about that are part of it. You've gotten into sort of the hardest part of this, and I wanted to just kind of pull us back out for a minute and remember what we're part of, which I believe is a revolution in local food production. And so does Ohio State University, because they've funded me to start talking about how we do something like this in Marion, how we do something like this in Newark. And so when I look out a year from now, I imagine budding potential producers coming from Marion to come and train on a site that's right here and to learn from all of the expertise that's been developed in the 3 years we've been putting this together. You are essentially the heart of microfarming, and I think you will continue to be the heart of microfarming as we scale this system regionally, as we scale this system up. And that, I think everybody who's put funding and institutional support into the system believes that this is the potential for the system, that we're at the beginning of something big. That said, this is hard. this is hard work. This is stressful work. Life is hard, but it is a project in which we are asking for the very best of everybody who's participating in it, and we're getting it. Like, I want to say, as a project manager, when we went into the COVID release, and like my wife's life stopped, my kids' life stopped, my life didn't stop. Yeah, I looked out in the project that like is the project of my life. You guys continued to produce through that, and like that's all that got me through the COVID, was that this thing was still going. I would have spiraled into despair otherwise, because it's really hard to stay home all of the time. What's that?
You need to be a micro farmer.
Yeah, well, I learned I didn't like farming years and years ago.
Funny.
My brother loves farming. My sister loves farming. I like building systems. So I'll build a system of farming. So all of that is to say that I think we're going places you won't even imagine when you look back 5 years from now. Because I think when we stand here and look back just a year from now, we've gone places.
I'd like to see this double.
Well, we've gone, so some of the things the project has done is put in funding to double this, with part of it becoming a production facility. Part of the thing that the project has done is go after funding to take all the brilliant training that Dana did last year. Yes.
Yay.
Like, brilliant, to train trainers with what she knows, to codify it.
They sent you somewhere for more training.
She's the expert. She's the expert here. But so we spent 1.5 years in this project getting it implemented, and you guys in underneath that had to train and get running in a lot of ways on your own. We shift some focus from the project at this point. This is part I want to communicate. We want this system to succeed. We did not bring this grant here for this system to fail. We're not the kind of social scientists who step back, measure, and let you fail. We're here to make it succeed. And in order for it to succeed best, we want to start as a project making sure nobody's getting left out in the cold in any which way. We don't care what it is. We want to make sure if there's a problem, if there's a shortage, if someone got sick, if you need something, we know about it. Not because we can always address it, but because we do have the 30,000-foot view on where our resources are and can quickly allocate resources as needed. And part of the process of learning here is identifying some things we forgot to fund. And there may be more things, and if they emerge in that process, we want to go after that money because we want you to succeed. I want every single one of you at the beginning of January 2022 to say, I've got this micro farm, I am a micro farmer, I'm confident in the Richland Gro-Op surviving, and we are moving forward in a direction of success. And if we are not going to get there in January 2022, the project isn't going anywhere until we can say that. We want this project to succeed. I'm committed to making it a success. I know that the funding and the resources are out there to ensure it, and I want to be, as a project manager, and I want the project to be focused on how we bring you there, how we get you there, what we can do to support things. I know the pressure probably up to this point, I know I've articulated myself, is you got to get this, you got to get that, you got to get this, you got to get that. We've got 10 microfarms in. That's what we needed to do. We've got them in. And now, for the sake of the Gro-Op, for the sake of your collective organization, we need to make them as productive as we can, as quickly as we can. And it may be we're doing as much as we can, or it may be that there are things that we need to do. But that's sort of part of the opening conversation I'd like to offer, part of what I'd like to begin to help understand and think about ways to address. And I do know we have a huge gap right now in our project capacity, and that is that we have a marketer who we're paying to market who's also our farming expert. And Dana isn't being paid to do the farming expertise at this point, and doesn't have in her time getting the marketing done and ability to do all of that. So we want to institutionalize, how do we help you get that help where you need it, right? How do we get that specific help? How do we get the general help? How, if there's a deficit for getting something done, could we figure out how to get volunteers to get out there to get things done, things accomplished for you? Because I don't want anyone to feel like they're on their own in this. And I know, I'm sure every single one of you have been out in your night tunnels at some point in the last couple months, and I'm on my own. I'm all alone in this giant farm. What the heck's going on? So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you 1,000 times. Thank you. Wild success from the project perspective. You know, what can I do? How can the project be more helpful towards your success? And I mean that generally, and I mean that specifically. Nothing's too small, nothing's too large to at least consider. Oh yeah. Wonderful.
I am.
My only thing that I can see are here is you talk about help with harvest. I don't think each of us have an issue with that because there's going to be so much coming in. I mean, it's already, from this moment on, I can see it where I'm going to be harvesting. And I know some of us need help. So you mentioned providing help with that. That to me would be a number one for everyone.
And I mean, are you guys gonna all hit it? Are you guys, everyone feel the same way? A little bit of a gulp as you look at all the tomato plants?
Some haven't started harvesting. Rural.
I mean, I'm just going to say from even my end on something smaller than what a lot of you have, like, I agree. Harvesting is definitely taking up a lot of time.
Right.
And I think one thing to consider too with that is,
Oh, look, the geese are here.
is that the kind of like workload of a farmer throughout the year does like shift, right?
Right.
So like having kind of the planning to know that in July, August, September, I'm now moving from doing like 50% planting, 50% harvesting to maybe like 80% harvesting and 20% planting.
Right, and it is.
And then like sometimes you need additional, like it's easier to do it with multiple people.
It depends on the crop.
Yeah.
Something that I was going to actually bring up at a board meeting is just along the lines of what Dana was just saying, is that when we really kind of look at everything that we're doing, you know, it's that back half of the year. It's those 4 months that she just described that are kind of the heaviest. And I was kind of thinking that it could be maybe to our benefit, just kind of throwing it out there for us to talk about, to maybe for us to hire people that are universal. So somebody can go to Marco's on Monday, help Vince on Tuesday, help me on Wednesday, or different things like that. That could kind of have the skills and have the training and things that can hop around and help different farmers as needed.
I don't know, the migrant farmer. Is that what you're saying?
Like kind of like it could be people that are possibly in training.
Well, now
it
we're
could
understanding why there are market farmers.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it could be somebody that's maybe in training or somebody that's maybe interested in just farming and helping, or just people looking for a job. But then that keeps one farmer from having to foot the bill for you know, all that labor.
Makes sense.
Yeah, what's an acute, right, that's what's an acute need. I need it this day.
Just for at least for the back half of the summer, because this project was designed to have to take up 20 hours on average, but then you have to average in the 5 hours you're going to spend in December. In December, and the 2 hours you're going to spend in January, right, to the back half of the summer.
Yeah.
So so in the summertime, we're just going to need more help collectively as a whole.
Because unfortunately, we can't help each other anymore hardly.
Well, right, you're all stretched. You are all at stretch, beyond stretch, really.
That was great. We were all helping each other.
Right, because you had 4 beds. It was
Right.
Yeah. Probably too. So one of the things I think, and Dana's articulated this in our own meetings, that like 1 year and in is really quick. Like that's accelerated. It's probably asking too much in some ways. And so we, you know, as a project, acknowledge the fledglings are pushed off the edge while their wings are still coming in a sense. And we don't want you to hit the ground and splat. We really don't. And if that means maybe there's too much here, we need to shift there, we need to wait. What we'd like to do as a project is just make sure we continue to have an open conversation about that, so that nobody feels like they're somehow failing in all of this, but that, you know, they've brought that problem to the table and we've done our best, and maybe we solve it and maybe we can't. But we want to be problem solvers.
So maybe this is another training where, you know, we are businesses,
Yep.
and none of us know how to hire employees or what that truly means. So, I mean, that is going to be something that some of us are going to be having to do.
Yep.
But I don't
see a
see
training.
that for about another year or next year.
I see that next summer.
Right, springtime.
Especially if it could be a collective solution that's positive. You know, in addition to, and I think that could also serve the cooperative well in just kind of observations around the marketing and aggregation process so far. Some weeks I need additional support and like other weeks I don't. And it's kind of dependent on the orders. So having multiple different locations or places where people can be doing work could kind of help allow that flexibility while still employing someone, possibly like for an almost full-time position.
Is that something that the marketing manager could kind of coordinate, do you think? Or?
I think if that title expanded to marketing/operations,
Right.
manager,
I'm
then
just wondering if that's something that
I think that
I'm not trying
yeah.
to overfill your plate or anything.
Well, I think that could be something as a full-time position would be reasonable to do, especially if like a lot of that is in some ways known early on, that like, you know, that we're going to be harvesting primarily for like 3 months out of the year, and so like we could just like develop a schedule. I think that would be pretty reasonable for that person to help to coordinate.
And in terms of what's appropriate there, I mean, I think that's what we're trying to figure out, and it sounds to me like having that shared labor at the cooperative level is actually extremely beneficial.
I think
and
it
the
sounds
right
like a really efficient.
right approach to it. Yeah,
Yeah, because then you can just kind of sign up, you know, more or less saying, you know, hey, I'm going to need somebody on Tuesday and Friday.
Yeah.
We could have another Google form for it.
There you go.
Oh, please God, no.
By the way, I need you to fill out your Google form.
I think if you
He
do
meant it when he said,
like
"Please
some
God,
of
no."
these companies around here, and the North End has a temporary employment service, how the big companies around here, they hire temps and then they watch how they work.
Yeah.
And ones that show up every day don't do a good job while they're there and no problems, they offer them full-time work. Well, to take it one step backwards, we have a big court system here and a parole system and a probation system, a county probation, and they require people to do community service.
I've got one. Right
So you get a community service person in here, and I tell you, some of the community service jobs suck.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I wouldn't want to do it.
Right.
But here they could come in and work and enjoy it, and the ones who we might get some people that's interested, or we might have a really good worker, and we can refer them to possible part-time or full-time employment. But that's a good way to get save on the dime.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Now, is that what you were doing with the food lab?
No, we haven't did I got community service from the prison itself, but not from like the people that the judge gives you like 30 hours or something like that.
Yeah.
That's what Shane was referring to.
Yeah,
But
they
Deanna
don't
does
give
have that
30 hours.
commission,
They give 200.
Oh, okay, 100 hours.
Yeah, so that's a good amount. They give 200 hours of community service in the felony level.
Sure.
And then the parole officer or probation officer looks at the individual. Is this a safe environment for him or her? And on both sides.
Yep.
Like, they're not going to send a sex offender down here.
Right. Right.
And
But I would think there would also be a third or a fourth added to an already core staff, right? So you would have the ability of the cooperative to have an individual and maybe a couple of these
Right.
volunteers.
and if they're good
with-
workers, you can
Yeah.
snag on them. And the good thing about it is we don't have to push them because you report back to the probation or parole officer, this is the hours they did, or they keep leaving early and coming back, and they say, well, I wonder what they're doing here during that time, and so you have that parole officer making sure they're doing this and that, and
Shane, can I ask you about that as far as our end of that? Because I do have a young man that just started helping me yesterday. He's trying to do 30 hours in community. And I asked him, well, is there paperwork I have to sign or what? I mean, I'm a legitimate business.
he should have gave you his, if
He's told me that he
Is it
told
court
them that it would be
imposed?
with me. He already told them that.
well, you need to contact his probation parole officer because they have to approve it. They might say, oh no, you
Well, I
can't.
think they told him yes.
Well, you should, but you should. There's
need
a
to be
piece
the
of
one-
paper
Yeah,
that
I
he
never-
carries with the
That's what I
hours.
thought.
Yeah.
It also might need to be something that's coordinated by a nonprofit organization ultimately,
Right.
because there are rules around a for-profit business
For
being
us.
able
But
to
this is
like, have
this is still
volunteers.
right
Yeah.
now. This is a research study thing, right?
Yeah,
So we're
this is,
still but once we're on our
NCIC.
own, then they can't. But they could work any CIC.
Right, so yeah,
A
you're right about
nonprofit,
that,
yeah.
the NECIC side of things,
Yeah.
but maybe
I,
not
I know
before.
that is a concern for farms who, like, even those who offer maybe like a farm share, where you like volunteer on the farm in exchange for something.
Community service,
there
you
needs to
can't
be-
get anything for it.
But-
no monetary gains.
But I think for like, especially for a farm, in order to volunteer for like a for-profit business, there are you usually can't.
Oh,
do
you
that
can't
unless you have
for-
to pay employees
but
for that kind
they
of thing,
can
unless
volunteer.
There's some other kind of arrangement.
Down at
Those are important
with
things
Justin
for us.
in Justin's,
Right.
and then that frees up other people to go work doing other things. It just gives you some more bodies.
Yeah.
So
Basically, if I had a couple people helping me out, I could go and help somebody else out.
yeah, see,
Or even get some of your own stuff done.
yeah. There's different ways, and if it gets even bigger, that's neat. But city probation, they all put to work within the city, like
Well, it's like
So
right
not
now.
on the rural.
city departments.
So probably not on the rural farms. Is that what you're saying?
No, because they're hours. But the NEIC building
This side
and
is the, right, there's
Yeah.
a nonprofit
We
component
need to
here.
do a little workshop on some of that kind of stuff too.
Probably we ought to, because it is, you do, right, because you guys are doing a kind of a social enterprise in the sense that there's a mission-driven component to it, but it's for profit, right? It's not the tradition, it's not an NECIC. The NECIC site would qualify
Yeah.
for that, but I wonder where else, I mean, on the market side of things, you pay for your own labor,
yeah.
right?
That's why I
and-
brought my son in.
or you enlist your children. That's what my childhood was.
Yep.
Yeah, and
Well,
I
it's
think
like-
you could probably
that why you
expect a different
Yes, that's why-
quality
right,
out of
exactly.
someone who you're paying.
Yep.
versus someone who-
Right.
Although my daughter
Yeah.
tells me she has a rather expensive education, and she did not intend
Oh yeah.
manual labor.
That was funny.
Right.
That was funny.
Yeah, I'm sure she'll tell me that again tonight.
Well, I was teasing you when we were doing the packing and getting paid for it, and I said, "How does it feel?" to her, like, "How does it feel to work for crumbs like the rest of us?" yeah. But you had to pay a lot for that education.
Well, so I guess if we could make sure we quantify that as much as we can, or at least stay ahead of it, right? Tomatoes, I guess, on the vine are still green at this point, although you get a few reds. But you move. I mean, it's the next 8 weeks. Like,
The cherries are going to be coming. real
right.
Yeah, we'll have tomatoes next
What's that?
If you build
They will.
your building,
Yeah.
that could work for community service.
I chose to help.
For them
Dana out
helping
by
you build your
planting-
building.
getting mine in the
Well,
ground a
that's-
little late, so
They'll
to
come
extend-
late.
extend her
Yeah.
season
She
out.
told me it's going to be. It's going to be a good
There's
Like-
lots
But they're
of
all
guys
in.
there.
rotating.
Yeah,
Good for you. For real.
And this is going to start. This
Wow.
need is going to
Finding
start
cucumber
earlier
to
next
be
year
nice.
because we're all a little bit behind because of the situations.
Oh, absolutely.
So yeah, this
Yep.
is going to start a lot sooner next year than
Right.
right now.
Well, yeah, had we not had COVID, we would have still had, you know, people helping us out. We could have potentially
Well, and
been still on.
that's one of the things that we do have is work study students from the university who are treated as work study students because like 75% of the salary is covered. We just don't have them when COVID's happening. And I guess we'll probably have some in the fall. We'll keep our eyes out for what the possibilities are. But next year, as this knock on wood clears up, that's another source of labor. But so I am hearing though labor. Make sure we have the labor in the right place. A person or two, you guys feel like that'd cover it ultimately? Is that as you look at it? And I mean, Dana's the experienced farmer here. Does that sound right to you in terms of sort of helping the farm? So let me back up for a minute. The design of the microfarm is that an experienced farmer can run it themselves. This is a brand new thing. None of you are experienced microfarmers. None of you. Nobody is. We've never done it before. So we would like to get to that point. We'd like to find out if that's not true, and we need to adjust our expectations. But, that said, if we can, for the system, get you guys up to full production even before you're ready to be experienced. And I guess the question is the wiggle room a person in that moves around, or is it...
Between all 10 of us, we can definitely give somebody 40 hours of work. A few people probably 40 hours of work between 4 months for sure.
Yeah.
In the ag site.
And I was envisioning more than one person.
And I guess,
that was like-
Dana, is that ideal?
That's my question is, what do you think?
Is it?
Well, think how long it took us to harvest lettuce.
Well, yeah, and then
3 hours.
I'm just thinking about,
forever.
just even when we were
I know,
except
Jess.
for the one tunnel. I had
My poor kids hate me.
They'll thank you later,
4.5
trust me.
hours to just get the beds built.
Yeah.
And some of the like upfront costs of doing things like bed building and putting in soil, whatnot, those are going to be like a one-time.
Right.
See,
Yeah.
and
Like
that's
pretty
what
labor
I'm
That's what
struggling
once
with.
everything's
Yeah.
in place,
Whereas the
I'm
maintain-
struggling. I'm on, retirement income, and I pretty well, penny pinch. Oh, $1. These were $1.
Oh, I was like, what are you doing, Shane?
got stung by a bee.
I did too. I was like, oh my God, what's wrong?
And I felt bad about buying them because it's like, what could, it's like, my vet said my dogs don't need to come back except for the yearly, but Bonnie cost me $200 this month to update all her shots again. Now I don't have to do that for another 2 or 3 years. But it's like, I still have to, my electricity from my barn to the high tunnel is real close, isn't it? But I don't have the money to get that extra underground electricity thing to go up there right now. I will, but it's like everything is, this has to wait. I have the water there at the barn, but you've seen it. I have to run it underground and get one of those things.
Yeah.
And I kept saying, come on, 65, I'll get my Social Security check on top of it. Then I find out, because I get PERS, that the state of Ohio gets to take my Social Security check.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah,
I'm
welcome to Ohio. They
How
opted
am I
out.
going to make, that was, please just leave me $400 a month so I can pay for my supplement, medical supplement. And it's like I'm just scraping and trying and
Right.
praying that, things don't. I had to get the blade fixed on my tractor. I paid, got that. Had to get the starter
Right.
rebuilt. And it was like, it was great. No, it wasn't your bad. It was, nobody thought. I never thought. But anyways,
Right.
the Lord blessed me in the other way because a friend introduced me to a Mennonite man who did it. Instead of paying $400, I got it for $140.
Right.
But still, that was
Yep.
money that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like you say about the studies, watching the different. How does this kind of person?
Yes, exactly.
Because you know me, I'll work, and I'm hard-headed, and I'll work till 4 o'clock in the morning under lights, which I did. But it's like, where do you get the money for this and that? And I keep looking for that Brinks truck.
Well, so I mean, getting past, I do think, for those of you who have turned in vegetables and piles of vegetables, like, there's a check at the end of that, right?
Yeah,
it's not a lot. It's going to get more as you go, but you got to get to that point.
Yeah.
And so if there are other things, Shane, we can do to help you get to that point, we want you at the starting line by the fall crop as best you can be.
Yeah, this fall crop, but it's like it's a neat study if you had now I know you like the culture cities and stuff, and we like inner city income, low income, and I thought, oh, there's grant money for old ladies in farming. No, there's not.
There isn't grant money for old ladies going to school. There isn't grant money for old ladies to do shit.
I know. I know.
Trust me.
I know. I would go back to titty dancing in the bars.
I didn't really.
But they don't pay grandmas to strip anymore.
Stop recording.
Right. Well, so it is so Shane, it's probably no consolation whatsoever, but that is one of the things
it's like I'm holding my breath.
Well, it's one of the things we've learned in this. If we can find additional resources that can help with that, mostly they're now for farmers, right? If we find resources for farmers and we can help you get applications in for things, by all means lean on us. When we do this in Marion, one of the things that gets built into the grant is exactly that we're working with people on a fixed or a limited income, and to ask them to commit this kind of time is not, the kit itself is not enough to sustain that, because there's the ongoing income. So we have that in our sites as
and that's good, because that's a learning curve.
That was a learning
that with me, okay, this is, here we got this farm going, this farm going, this farm going, and then what in the hell's wrong with Shane? And it's like,
nothing, nothing. Like in
nothing,
fact,
because I'll work. It's just
we've asked a lot. We've asked the impossible, and quite honestly, you guys have just about achieved it. So kudos to you.
Okay, good. I'm just so afraid that somebody's gonna come up tomorrow and take my high tunnels.
No. So here's the thing. Like, don't even worry about that. Let us know how we can direct resources in your direction as needed.
Okay.
I can't promise I can do all of that.
Oh, I know. Just as long as you know where I'm at.
Let me know, because we don't want anyone feeling like they're dragging behind, or that they're somehow dragging down everybody else. And it's not like you can ask anyone else, because everybody else is white knuckling it too at this point.
I just want to share my experience of how I got this far, because there was investment needed for some things, because the grant didn't cover everything. And that wasn't necessarily a complaint, but I had to find, because I didn't have a regular job necessarily. Okay, but I was counting on the crops I was getting in the future, and I was able to use that as leverage to people, and also do other extra work here and there to get what I needed for those things. And so, like, I got this little check this week, my first check, but it took 1.5 years, and I don't care how small it is, because I'm proud that I got that far, that I even got that, even though I really actually spent the money before I got it. But that's normal, that's
the
what
American
we do
way
throughout life in general. But even if someone like me with barely anything can do it, I don't have a backup job or anything like that, and I'm not saying that's a negative or positive, but it's possible. It's like anybody can get there, but I couldn't have done it if it wasn't the program.
Oh, I know.
Because
the program gave me the education and a good start.
I do have two greenhouses sitting somewhere that I could have done this kind of thing, but it might have taken me 3 years to even get this far.
Right.
You know.
Right.
Well, I couldn't even afford the high tunnel, so I'd be
I
out.
appreciate all that, and I don't take it for granted at all. And I don't mind the extra work, but I also don't see me ever retiring. I'm
I
going to be a
don't
farmer
either.
until I'm part of the ground.
That's right.
You know?
You don't use it, you lose it.
Well, so in addition to some of that, recognizing that there are expenses associated with it, learning that a year in is probably just too quick. Thinking about how you cultivate and incubate a little bit more, so that some of that first income, instead of going right out the door, is banked so that you can ultimately purchase your way into exactly the situation that you want. So we imagine a year, maybe 2 years from now, if all continues to go as it's going, we will be training producers from Marion here in all of the methods of microfarming, and then they'll bring that back there and likely incubate it in a small site before moving it out to a larger site. And so, I mean, the upside is we've learned more than we ever imagined we could in a year and a half. Like, I could spend like you guys could quit tomorrow and I could spend the rest of my career writing about what we've done here. Like, it's remarkable. And
Just don't mention the quitting part.
Well,
That's not
I'd have to explain that. And then I told them to quit, and they did. This is a remarkable. I mean, this is just a remarkable thing that you guys have done.
You know what I like about it? I had a conversation with somebody. She knew that I was doing this, and she's very high up in the local political party. I won't say which one. Okay, we'll leave that. It doesn't, but a local political party. And so she's a smart woman, opinionated woman, and she's been involved in a lot of things. And when this was going, and you started building these, she actually said, "Oh well, that's not going to work." And she says, "People talked about it before, and it didn't work." And I'm like, it was like, and it upset me. I mean, I didn't argue with her, and I said, "Oh well, I don't know what you did back then when people started it, but I heard Kip talk about it. You came to a naturalist program or a master gardener program like 4 years ago,
right. Yep.
And it was just like we're going to, and you know, we weren't going to go do any. It took a long process.
Well, that's what we're writing about right now.
But I want success just to show her and the other naysayers that it worked.
So we
That's
have
a motivator.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, so Brian White, who I love to death, and he volunteered to be a project manager for this, had bets with the rest of the facility staff about how quickly they would be plowing my microfarm back into the landfill down at the end of the. And as soon as I heard that, it was the same thing. I was like, not gonna happen.
Yeah.
And we've been in continuous production since we got soil in those beds.
And
That's
I
3
felt
years.
like, well, I don't have to defend it anymore.
Right.
I don't have to defend it.
Right. Well, so we've got other things that are happening around this as well, one of which is that there's a whole technological backbone to this which could make it more profitable. So smart beds that can read your nutrients and that can read your watering and that can do some things for you automatically, and some automated kind of modular pieces that can do a whole lot of your manual labor. And a system that would cost under $10,000 and ideally under $5,000, but would take 50% of your labor away.
Where do we sign up for this?
Well, we got to build it. So this is
That's good though.
As I started working with, I've been working with engineering students for the last couple of years. The folks working around that were all saying, well, we got to use these off-the-shelf Arduino, Raspberry Pi. It's robotics. It's what everybody else uses. And as we got 2 years into it, it became clear to me that what we need is a microfarm logic board that does exactly what a microfarm needs. And we need this thing called a smart bed. And so we've got
it. Ground, or does it have to be raised?
It just needs to go over the bed.
No,
over
but I
the
mean,
bed.
so it can be an in-ground bed though.
Oh, it can be an in-ground bed.
Perfect.
Yeah, so it's a set of sensors,
So
right?
I can continue to get excited.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so
It's
it makes
sensors.
me-
Sensors are a sensor board, right? Essentially, it's reading your. So we've got a researcher who's looking at microbiomes, and she's putting in a careers grant to build a microfarm on the Waterman farm that's going to have this technological backbone, because she wants to study microbiomes for their effect on pesticide in plants and for their effect on the nutrition of plants, and she wants to invent a monitor that detects the signal of the microbiomes, and so she's building the technology and learning the science at the same time. So it's those, and that's happening all over the place. It's those sorts of things that we'd want to integrate into this, with the idea that it's, you know, if you've got an operating microfarm, a bank would be willing to loan it to you because it would increase your profitability by this much. And moving forward, it would put that profitability, you know, everything you guys are learning here is making this process easier for us to teach people and train people in the future. And so the technology then means more people are going to want to jump into this because, oh, look, I need to spend 15 hours a week, and the rest of it, it's handled in these particular ways. We are putting together an engineering team. We are... I've talked a little bit with IdeaWorks. Jay's interested. We want to start with, because this is different than a charitable project. This is a venture capital project. And we'd like to get local money first, but we think there's probably money in the state sufficient for something like this, and interest in this. Our goal, though, is to hitch it to RGO, to hitch it to NECIC, and to hitch it to Mansfield itself. So if something like this takes off, maybe Mansfield ends up being the place where it's manufactured, but the patent on it and the value of that patent, part of it goes to RGO as the founding organization where this happened, part of it goes to NECIC as the key community partner, and then the other inventors who are involved with the thing. But I see it as a way of adding some value on the back of what we've done here, which could be far more than anything we could do with tomatoes in the long run. And I'm doing everything I can to try to put that together. And
That's exciting.
The response from folks is very positive. What we'll do is work with the university to put together the right, like we'll protect the intellectual property rights so that that they're vested in the right places, and we won't start any of this without first going, here's how this is being divvied up. Everybody good with how we're moving forward with this, and then we'll go after the money and see what we can find, see what we can do.
I'm gonna throw something out there for you.
Yes.
Okay. Even though I've met students that do internships like at different places, and what I found with a lot of them, it's not paid internships, and even like down at the Wilds, the kids don't get paid. Plus, they have to pay to live there.
Oh, really?
At the Wilds, they have to pay to live there. So I'm just throwing out there, you get an engineering student who is interested in wind energy, water energy from a spring, or solar, they could stay at my place free.
Oh, okay.
And they can build whatever they want on my property, and I'll even feed them.
All right.
I'll feed them.
Beautiful. Well, one of our outcome goals. So when you think about technology,
Yeah.
you can build values into it. So one of the values is this does not replace the farmer; it makes the farmer smarter.
Yeah.
That's it. Like, we cannot ever replace the farmer.
No.
We don't want that kind of system. What was the thing you just talked? Oh, the second is renewable. That this should be should be zero carbon, right?
Yes.
It should be solar or wind, and we ought to be able to pull it out of the sky long enough to keep the whole
The
thing
Amish are
operating.
doing it.
You know, some of the property I'm buying over here is for a solar array.
Oh, really?
That's the goal.
Yeah.
And it's
So
adding to what I've already got. It's
I got a
all
friend
right
who just
there.
threw 6 panels on his house in Somerville, and he's getting a check from the electric company every single month. Because in Massachusetts, they buy it back.
hey, California's the same way.
I can see that out here covering all of this.
Walt had a guy who was really excited about that.
Yeah,
from the prison.
the Yeah, we actually
You
had
taught
them.
it in prison, didn't you?
No. They actually already have a program going on at Ricky, and then so some of the guys that were out here volunteering had already taken the solar program, and so I was able to have a guy kind of put together a few different quotes and different things, but it's an infrastructure thing.
Yeah.
You know, if we can get the money to get the infrastructure,
So that
then,
kind of thing.
Yeah.
you know.
There's addition. I mean, right now, I mean, unless you're dealing with the COVID virus, forget about it.
Oh, I know.
Nobody's
That's
spending
really
any
put
money on
the
it.
notch on everything.
But there is, you know, sustainable energy, and there is, in fact, a large company that's become a partner with OSU, NG, which is a French energy company, which has got piles of cash that it's spending in Columbus and would love something like this. We just need to circle around to that
A
once a year.
Frenchman is even sweeter.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. He could talk and I don't need to understand.
This woman.
Right.
I'll feed him. I don't
I don't
think
I'm trying to take a video and I can't.
Shane's hospitality maybe.
I'm over here laughing.
We're gonna have to edit this. Just.
Well, that's what she's making me laugh. I'm going down like this, trying to hold the camera up to catch everybody. I'm like, ah.
I was being serious. I don't want him talking to me. Just look good.
What he said.
Other problems besides Shane's that we
It's not a problem. It's healthy. It's so healthy.
Woo.
I think, kind of giving a 10,000 foot view here, I think when moving forward to like Marion and Newark, the training and everything that we received was amazing. I mean, I came in probably like 3/4 of the way through the training and everything else, and even with what I got was like absolutely phenomenal. I think there should be, this is just me absolutely just giving an opinion. You can take it as it is. Opinions are like assholes. Everyone has one and they all stink.
Mine does.
When moving forward after like training, I love the idea of the kits. You know, the kits was a great asset. Having the tunnels and then the inside beds, the outside beds, with the rural farmers having the different amenities that we had in the urban farms. What if it came more as in like stages during the training? One tunnel, you put in 1 year, you get 1 tunnel with the inside beds. You put in 2 years, you receive that second tunnel. And so you're moving more into
Getting acclimated to it.
Yeah, that acclimation, and you're putting in more of that sweat equity, but then it also allows you a little bit extra time for that infrastructure that
And learning.
that most people couldn't afford.
Right.
The
That's a
water,
good idea.
electric, things like that. Just kind of moving
so like
forward,
if
you
you
know,
had moved
like
from, if your next step from Ohio demonstration site was just this site, and everybody was on this site for a year, working
Might be
tunnel,
easier on them.
Yeah.
yeah.
and it could be more, and it would give, like with RGO, it would give RGO maybe more time to set up, have a little bit more money going in, because it's sweat equity, so it's more manageable for the individual, which if they're just putting in that sweat equity, a portion of it is not only going back to the university, going back to the project, but going into maybe the co-op within itself. So then when everything is now, we're beyond that training and going into that individual farming, that co-op, RGO, whatever, they have a little bit more funds in their back pocket. They're ready to bring on additional help for harvest times. If someone wants to get involved and they even have the money, like, okay, you train with us in 1 year, we've got the money in our back pocket that says, if you train on our facility for a year, we'll purchase you a high tunnel.
I'm not sure that RGO is going to have the funds to do that.
Yeah,
But like what I'm saying,
I don't see that happening anytime soon.
So I see the future of no asset people moving into micro farms, because you can't get grants forever, can't pay for this. They just simply won't sustain itself. Is partial sweat equity and partial financing. And so you come out of perhaps 2 years of training and you've put away $25,000, which is from all the vegetables you've grown and sold, and you get half of that kit, and the bank says you've got through this training, you have this certificate, you're a member of RGO, chick, you meet all the boxes, you qualify for this low interest loan that will cover the rest. And so you'd start up your microfarm with some skin in the game and with a need to continue to produce to pay back that first amount that you loaned, but it would be designed to be low interest and manageable and so part of as we learn what the microfarms are capable of doing, we figure out what what those dollars amounts end up being. But that staging perfect, I mean, I think that really is the missing piece here, and this is why it feels more stressful than I wish it did for all of you at this point, is we probably moved too quick into more space than everybody can handle all at once, and that's a reality. But we want to help with that.
See, and a setup like that would have helped me, because when I said I need money for and it's not a whole lot of money.
Right.
But to me,
it's huge.
If you don't have the money,
tell me.
It could be, 10,000 or $1 million. It doesn't make a difference. Or it could be 1,000. So that would have helped. But I'm going to get there. If I have to sell some more of my ex-husband's stuff.
Hey, no, as far as the
Boat.
staging
I got a
goes,
boat for sale. You didn't see the boat. It's a vintage boat.
I think the staging's
I got a
really
boat
good.
for
I think RGO could serve as a guarantor for loans.
Yeah. So if
I
you
think
felt
that's
that someone
possible.
if you felt that someone had met certain qualifications, you'd guarantee.
And that may get them over the hump with respect to financial institutions.
Yeah.
Also,
Because
which we've talked about before, but USDA has a microloan program that, Anna and I, when we were looking at the program this past year and talking with her mom, who was a USDA loan officer, she said that a program like that basically would then qualify someone for a microloan. So I think instead of recreating the wheel, there are between microloan programs, NRCS, where you can apply for a high tunnel and get a high tunnel as a result. I think there's a lot of creative ways that coming out of a program like this here, you could then connect those graduates to either the financing, a really low interest loan, and also some of the infrastructure. And NRCS generally also has an interest in water conservation, in other kinds of habitat restoration. So by plugging into that system, you can also access all kinds of other.
I read some of theirs, but they want I only have just less than 13 acres. They put a lot more acreage than that.
Not for the equip program.
no, they don't.
You got to get your farm. You got to get your farm number. You get your farm number.
Yeah, you just have to register.
Yeah, they don't require a lot of space.
Yeah, you register your farm number. Once you register your farm number, that'll let you know what you qualify for based off of your size. So you can't tell them that you need a combine if you gotta have it.
Shane, if you want our help, we can certainly help you figure out what you need.
There's some goofy rules. For example, you have to have them help me with water on my property. I have to have a critter that requires water on my property.
You're not one? You don't?
No, I only have to have one critter. But the like a horse or something. So at any rate, the problem being though, if I don't have water on the property, I can't water the horse, and so it's it becomes sort of an odd thing. And I finally told him, I said, well, I do have a horse that's at Ohio State down in Columbus, and they said that might qualify. I said even if it's in Columbus, they said maybe. Maybe.
Because you can bring it home then.
But then they have other rules for fencing, for example. They won't pay for perimeter fencing on my property, but you can get a grant for dividing it up. So there's some
I'm going to divide my farm up.
Yeah, I have to do the outside fence.
Right.
But they'll help with doing the
internal.
The little small lots.
I think possibly a service that RGO could help to provide there then is with these resources that are available, they could create that with NECIC and OSU, kind of create that system where like there's like clear steps and you're being
Yeah.
helped along the way.
Yeah, I'd always envisioned
And do
that.
it
Yeah, see, that's
properly.
It's an application.
Yeah.
See,
See, that's
that-
the. I was just gonna say I think that's the part of it that we I don't think that we did a bad job of it. But if we like double down on it next time with the next group of people, it's like really treating it like a real business, like setting expectations up that you're going to be successful in 2 to 3 years, in 2.5, 3 years, and just setting expectations in a way that they know that you have to invest in this for the grander scheme of things, which is to be a part of the Grow-Op, and be a part of the success program of it. But how you get there is your own individual metrics of it all. It could take you 2 to 3 years, which is kind of 2 to 3 seasons, really. Because it's just the way we grow. So I think that's the biggest thing that we got to really spell out for everybody, to set those real expectations, let them know, treat it like a real business. There's going to be real investments. You know, it's going to take a whole process in it all, versus like, you know, us thinking, versus having them think like once they start growing, they're going to start making money.
But also that like with other businesses, there are resources out there. So it's not necessarily that you have to, you know, just like find $2,000 of your own money up front, but that like we can connect you to like a loan program
Somebody
so
else.
that you have that and can help.
Because we gotta focus on more of the individual business themselves. Because like we didn't necessarily try to blanket everything, because we did have some of that focus based off of who was where and you know and so on. But I think that's going to be one of the biggest things with the new people. Like we kind of bring them in, focus on them, and particularly what exactly do they need, what exactly don't they have, you know what I mean, and just kind of build everything custom around how RGO is going to help that individual, instead of like just offering services or just offering trainings or just offering.
So I've got an idea. You can tell me if this is crazy, but we're talking about labor to help in the fields and a pass around person or people to help in the tunnels, etc. What if you had an admin that was a floater like that too? Somebody who could say, you know, you said, I know about this grant, but I don't have time to read through it all, or I need somebody to start working on the grant writing, or Judith, she needs caught up on paperwork and whatnot. Can I have 8 hours of just data entry stuff
That
like
would be
that?
good, yeah. Or I need help with my crop plan.
It could be anything from typing in data entry to organizational stuff, or
we can take those edges off, I think, a little bit too.
Yeah.
And maybe direct some fundraising.
That would make the co-op pretty powerful in terms of being unique.
Yeah,
I was just going to remind everyone that NECIC does have a micro-business program. Micro-business loans.
It's
$500.
$500.
If you go through their class, but you get a bigger loan. You can get a bigger loan than that.
I went through it.
How big?
That's went through it.
Yeah, I was going to go through it.
Done it.
I haven't decided whether I want to go into
The microloan, so a small percentage over.
because
But you
I
gotta
don't
think.
have the flow going yet that I can commit to a payment to pay it back. So I'm just being a little careful.
But imagine $500.
Could help me rent my
Even so,
trench.
you go through a class that's literally a few hours long for a couple weekends.
Going to train you.
We're going to train you and things like that. You get really good advice. Plus, you get continuous advice from Edward, who's a micro-business genius.
He's awesome.
That $500 is your electric. It is your water.
It's your trench,
It's what's getting you started without you having to pick up your own pocketbook.
The classes were on Saturday, though, weren't they? Because I signed up, but I couldn't go because I had those damn grandkids.
I think they decided according to the group what was best.
And it was a good day. But
Dana Sigmund
I was just saying, Kip, I hate to say I'm probably on the last leg. I'm probably on the last leg of battery, too.
Okay.
I gotta pee. Can I go behind the truck?
There's a porta pot with a wash.
I gotta go behind the truck.
Fair enough.
It's clean.
They just cleaned it.
The porta potty's clean, Shane.
All right, everybody wave for me real quick here. I'm gonna stop recording. So everybody wave for me, please. Wonderful.
Good seeing you.
Wonderful. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Everybody's waving. Wonderful.